For this video, you find me with the 2022 GTI in Autobahn trim. It's finished in the Atlantic blue metallic paint with the Titan black leather interior, and this one is spec'd out with the 6-speed manual transmission. And after destination, you can pick it up for about $39,000. How's it going, everyone? Welcome to Shifting Lanes. My name is Hanson. Thanks for tuning into the video. And for this one, I want to give you my review of the 8th generation Volkswagen GTI. 2022 is the first model year that the US gets this Mark 8 GTI, whereas the rest of the world got a head start last year. So you'll see a restyled body, new interior, a power increase, and a bunch of other things that I'll talk about during this video. And if you learn anything new while watching this or have any feedback, comment it down below. Make sure to hit that like, subscribe, and especially that notification bell button, because your views, your comments, and your feedback will help keep this channel going. Now let's begin the review with the outside first. The Mark 8 GTI gets a really nice visual upgrade all around that makes it look more premium and modern than the previous generation. Starting at the front, there's a pretty radical new look with its honeycomb grille with hidden fog lights. There's new LED headlights and daytime running lights, and if you get the SE or the Autobahn trims, you'll get an LED light bar integrated in the grille. With all of those lights on, the new GTI looks unique. The light bar gives it an easily recognizable face, and I think it's a really nice addition. I want to hear what you think about it. If you think this is tacky, let me know in the comments down below. Moving to the side, that GTI look is unmistakable from a distance, but if you look closer, there are a few changes. The character line now continues from the front fender all the way to the rear hatch. There's a nice side skirt along the bottom, and the 19-inch wheel that comes with the Autobahn trim fills out the space pretty well. Though in my opinion, it could probably use some spacers for a better flush look. And I'm kind of bummed that the red brake calipers don't have that GTI lettering anymore like in the previous generations. And finally, moving to the back, that modern and clean design is maintained. I really like how that sharp crease continues across the hatch. The GTI badging is now underneath the Volkswagen logo, giving it a more classic look. And then the dual exhaust is a good size, and it's surrounded by a very modest rear diffuser design. Overall, that iconic hatchback design is still there, but it has been improved. It now looks more refined and more clean. And in my opinion, this is the best looking GTI to date. And I just wish that those two-door GTIs were still a thing, because that would have looked fantastic with this design. Moving inside, visually speaking, the GTI looks clean and crisp. I like the leather seats on here. It feels pretty comfortable, and there's also pretty decent bolstering on the side. And I like that you can even get heated seats on the base S trim. If you look at the dash, it looks very simple and streamlined. It's almost as simple as a concept car. The vents are nicely integrated, and there's actually no buttons on the dash at all except for the hazard lights. Most of the controls have now moved to the 10-inch display. The screen quality and the graphics are nice. The performance could be a bit better in some places, like the built-in navigation can be sluggish. But I personally like to use Apple CarPlay when I need navigation, so it's not a big deal for me there. And speaking of Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, Volkswagen has wireless app connect. So that means that you can connect to it wirelessly. You could just jump in your car, never take your phone out of your pocket, and just connect to Apple CarPlay or an Android Auto. It is super convenient. Couple this nice screen with the fully digital instrument cluster, and the interior of the GTI looks awesome. I am in love with the look of the new GTI, and I think it looks so sharp and so modern. And I really like that you can get this digital cockpit on the base S trim, which starts at under $30,000. There's also plenty of ambient lighting in this GTI. Now, that ambient lighting doesn't add any horsepower, but I love how you can change it on the fly to fit your mood, and it is a great way to personalize your GTI. This is all a big upgrade over the Mark 7 GTI, and when you look at the two cars, this feels much more premium and more expensive. And that's what the Mark 8 GTI interior is all about. It looks premium, it looks expensive, but when you start to play around with it, it's actually kind of a mess. And this is where I think Volkswagen has taken a terrible step backwards with the Mark 8 interior design. The user experience is not great. The first issue is a lack of a volume dial. Now, call me crazy, but I like to use dials with my infotainment system. Instead of a volume dial, you have these two touch-sensitive buttons that can control the volume of your stereo system. And there's also a power button on the left-hand side of the screen, which is hard to spot because from the driver's point of view, it's blocked by the steering wheel. Next to those touch buttons are the dual zone temperature controls, also touch sensitive. This is actually a pretty terrible spot to put these controls because when you're driving and making adjustments on the screen, you're most likely using this area as a ledge for your thumb to rest on, and you could accidentally press something while you're making a selection. The other design flaw here is that these controls are not backlit, so good luck changing the volume and the temperature while you're driving at night. And it's ridiculous to think how there's so much ambient lighting on the dash, the door cards, the storage compartments, and there's even a puddle light that casts a golf ball image on the ground that they decided not to light up the one place that people would actually care about, the temperature and volume controls. It's a bad design decision. But let's be realistic about these controls. Personally, once I set the temperature, I never change it again. And also with the volume controls, I can retrain my brain to use the controls on the steering wheel. However, here's where Volkswagen made another big misstep. They also went full haptic feedback on the steering wheel buttons. And here's where the user experience goes from about a 7 out of 10 to about a 3 out of 10. These buttons are simply terrible. The first problem is that the entire panel is one button. So the pressing effort feels a lot higher. It feels like you're pressing your finger against a wall. You'll appreciate how great traditional steering wheel buttons are once you start playing around with this one. The other problem with this design is that you can also unintentionally change things just by grazing on certain spots of the steering wheel. For example, when I'm driving, I like to keep my hands at the 9 and 3 position. But I also like to place my left hand on the spoke every once in a while because it's a relaxed hand position for me. Now that becomes a problem here because you can unintentionally change your cruise control settings. And that's the same issue with the heated steering wheel button. First of all, I love how the heated steering wheel button is actually on the steering wheel. On other cars, it's usually located elsewhere. So that's a great design decision by Volkswagen. Awesome. But the problem here is that you can also graze that button unintentionally, and there's no LED indicator on the screen or on the steering wheel that your heated steering wheel is on. It only comes up as a pop-up notification in the fully digital instrument cluster. So there's a lot of these weird issues that comes up once you start putting in these touch-sensitive haptic feedback buttons. And I recently tested the Volkswagen GLI, which is pretty much this car with a trunk. And that car also had this style steering wheel button with the haptic feedback, and it started making some really unpleasant noises. And I'm hoping it's just an issue with that car alone, but I'm afraid that it may happen here as well. Now, all of these things, in the grand scheme of things, are annoying, but they're not big enough to be deal breakers, because if you just focus on the negative user experience and not really pay attention to the great driving experience, you'd be doing this car a disservice because this is the best GTI Volkswagen has ever made. Starting in the engine bay, this new GTI has a 2-liter direct injected turbocharged engine making 241 horsepower and 273 pound-feet of torque. That's a slight but noticeable power bump compared to the Mark 7 design. There's still that clever electronic limited slip differential for the front axle. Now LSDs are a must-have if you like to do autocrossing or doing track driving or just like to drive enthusiastically through back roads. LSDs allow you to send more power to the side of the car that has more grip. So for those crucial corner exits, you can really put the power down much more efficiently. And combine that limited slip differential with that brake-based torque vectoring system, and you can get pretty good results with this front-wheel drive car, and it also helps to reduce understeer. Now, since this GTI is an Autobahn trim, it also comes with the DCC, or Dynamic Chassis Control feature, which means that you can adjust the dampers on the suspension, making it as soft or as stiff as you want. So handling-wise, this GTI is a lot of fun. It feels light. The steering response is very good, where you feel in tune with both the car and the road. And with respect to the suspension, it's a bit on the firm side. If the roads are a bit bumpy, you're going to be somewhat punished in here. Now, the difference between comfort suspension and sport suspension isn't that great compared to something like the Veloster N, which can go from soft to really punishing. And I'm going to have another video comparing that car to this one. So once it's ready, there's going to be a link up here. Now you may have noticed that I have the 6-speed manual transmission in here. I'm so happy to be reviewing this unit because I just love to row my own gears. Now the 7-speed dual clutch gearbox is fantastic. It shifts lightning fast. It's faster than this car. But I just love manual transmissions so much more. And I like the gearing on this thing because the second gear is actually pretty tall. I think you could go over 70 miles an hour in second gear, which is great for you autocrossers out there because depending on the course layout, you may never even have to shift into third. So better handling, more adjustability, same great manual transmission, a more powerful engine, and a stunning new design. This Mark 8 is a great step forward for the GTI. You still get the great utility that comes from a compact hatchback, so plenty of cargo space in the back, and still usable, albeit tight second row. The interior user interface is a bit disappointing, but like I mentioned before, I don't think it's enough of a deal breaker. You just have to work around some of its annoying issues. So overall, this is a big thumbs up for me. I love driving this Volkswagen GTI, and I think it is such a great daily driver. It's one of those cars where it's great for daily driving, and also you could just take it to track days and your autocross days. It's such a great car that way. This manual transmission is such a delight. It's easy to drive, and if you're learning manual transmissions, this is a great car to learn on. Is this better than the Veloster N? I'm going to save that opinion for another video, and once it's ready, again, you'll see the link down below. But for now, I'm going to wrap it up right there. My name's Hanson. This has been the 2022 Volkswagen GTI, and I'll see you next time.
Pardon?
That's been going on like about 20 times during this video review. Anytime I say Volkswagen, it triggers that. So hopefully you can turn it off.